Welcome to another instance of Data4God. Today, it is my absolute pleasure to be able to welcome in an actual old friend of mine from one of the places I used to work, Elder Research. I'd like to welcome in John Dimeo. How you doing, John?
Great. How are you doing, Eric?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Good
So
to see
now,
you again.
I know it's been a while. It's been a while, and I see that you've got the drum set in the background, which is the only thing that really matters. So that's awesome. Maybe at the end you can give us a concert. It'll be good.
It's better than a virtual background.
Amen to that, my friend. You are not kidding there. You are not kidding there. Well, awesome. So let me give the audience a brief introduction to you. So thanks actually to a connection through his church, John started working, actually interning for John Elder of Elder Research, which, always has a special place in my heart, still to this day. And you were doing software engineering in a data science consulting context. Now, after graduating from University of Virginia, ACC, Elder Research was your full-time job for about 15 years. Well, you are actually a lot older than I thought you were. So during that time, John had the opportunity to do data science, machine learning, AI, data engineering, software engineering, and development operations across a wide variety of domains, industries, using a wide variety of tools and technologies. However, this past May, you joined Compassion International as a senior data support specialist, where you're applying those skills and experiences over the 15 years at Elder Research to the mission of releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name. So, John, you live in Charlottesville, Virginia with your wife and 3 kids. You play drums and lead a small group at Ravenna. Is that how you pronounce that? Ravenna Community
Yep.
Church? Awesome.
Got it.
Awesome. Cool deal. Well, again, thank you so much, man. And, I gave that introduction, and you've got a varied set of background here, right? Like, you were data science consultant all the way through and through, worked with data in a commercial and an industry setting for so many years, and now you're doing it sort of on the nonprofit side. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about yourself, help the audience get to know you beyond just the background, but also tell me about that journey you took.
Yeah, so it was really abrupt. It was really God. Another connection was Young Won Lee, who's my current manager now at Compassion. He was a material science engineer at UVA,
Nice.
And my Bible study leader back when I was an undergraduate student. And he left his science job to do nonprofit work. And over the years, he said, "Come work for me. Come work with me at Compassion." And I said, "No. I'm so happy at Elder Research. I don't want to leave." And then when he sent me an email in the spring announcing the new team that he was forming, when I read that email, I felt like God said, "Okay, now's the time. Go join him." And I said, "What? I'm doing all these things. This is my plan."
Yeah.
Nope, go join him. And then I said to my wife Jen, hey, I'm actually considering this, because thanks to the high demand for our field,
Yes.
You're getting all these LinkedIn emails and things like that. And so, usually it's just like, no, not even thinking about it, not
Yep.
on the radar. But then when I mentioned it to my wife, she also said, "Yep, now's the time." And I was like, whoa, so it really came out of nowhere. And what's been really cool is that I've seen how every experience I had at Elder Research, even right up until the months before I left, prepared me for the work I'm now doing at Compassion, and I didn't join a moment too late, because I was able to get in for a few key decisions and things like that. So I hindsight, I see God's timing, but it really was abrupt. It wasn't any conscious choice on my part. I just got a new assignment. So
that is awesome, though. I mean, you're exactly right. We always have our notion of a plan and what we're supposed to do when, and God's like, yeah, you can have that idea all you want, but when it's time, I'll let you know it's time. And he just moves you to different areas. You're right. That's awesome, though, that you heard God's calling and that you followed it. And like you said, I think God, especially with us husbands, puts wives in our lives just to keep us straight, right? Where it's like, you go to your wife and she's like, yeah, that's time. You're like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on a second. You were supposed to tell me no. It's like, no, I was the one who's supposed to tell you yes. And so, oh yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, it was really cool to be on the same page. It just really helps when you're making a big decision.
Very much so. Now, I love the mission for Compassion International, but for those in our audience who may not actually know, what does Compassion International do?
Yeah, so you said the tagline, the releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name. And so what they're probably most well known for is child sponsorship,
Yep.
where you sign up to sponsor a child in the developing world,
Mm-hmm.
and you send them a small monthly support amount that pays for their education or other costs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also write letters or messages and kind of get to know them over the years. But Compassion does do a lot of other things as well, but that's really their main thing. And what's really cool about that is that it's always through a local church. So
Awesome.
so we as Compassion are not directly helping these children. We are the sponsors back in the States are supporting through the ministries of local churches.
That is really cool. I didn't know that part. That is really neat. So, because you're right. I mean, I think that's how communities probably are going to best adapt this, right? Is that they feel like they're part of their community and just helps them connect in with their local church. That is really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I was. There's actually a fair amount of skepticism about child sponsorship,
Mm.
because there's a lot of research that shows that you really should, invest in a village instead of an individual. And I mean, in the words of the old taco shell commercial, "Por qué no los dos?" Like, why not both, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
but some nonprofits are addressing those needs, other not, but the reason why I'm thrilled with what Compassion is doing is because of the way they dignify children and
Mm.
dignify and empower local churches. They also have like a rule now of never hiring an expat on the field. Like they only ever hire local people to do the on the ground ministry. Those kinds of things that really matter as far as how the program actually affects and helps and supports the community.
That is absolutely amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So now, how does your role at Compassion International use data? I mean, we are Data4God, so we got to talk about data at some point.
Of
How
course.
do you guys use data at Compassion International to sort of help with this mission that you've described?
So we are north of 2 million children that we're sponsoring right now.
Oh,
And so and we are not happy with that. We want to add a couple more zeros. Maybe one or two.
yeah,
There's only
exactly.
so many zeros you can have. We want to scale out, and
Yeah.
and our CEO has been very clear about that vision as well. And it's through every layer. And
Mm.
to do that, though, you need a solid infrastructure
Yeah.
of technology and data to support
Mm.
that level and to do it well. Like some of the stuff that we're also looking at now is like child protection.
Yeah.
And that's a cool area of NLP where you can actually try to screen some of those communications between the sponsors and their children just to make
Mm.
sure you're staying ahead of like because child safety and child well-being is a top priority. That's another big area of data is monitoring and evaluation.
Yeah.
Is our program actually having effectiveness? Like accountability and is a huge part of what we do, and data is driving a lot of those initiatives. Just providing the program at scale, and
Mm.
then keeping us accountable as we grow in that scale.
See, as a statistician, that's music to my heart that you're evaluating how good you're doing, because I think that's the one thing that a lot of missions don't necessarily always do. And like, it's important to tell the stories behind the missions, but it's also good. We have data, we have people that can analyze this data to really measure that impact, because I think that impact is what can really help sell that mission going forward.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of selling things, though, and this may be out of place because it sounds like your CEO is bought into this, but like, how do you sell this idea of a need for data? You may not need to because it sounds like the CEO is all in.
Yeah. That's one of the really great things about Compassion is
Mm-hmm.
that everybody's talking data now.
Awesome.
So it's not the should we, it's the how
Mm-hmm.
we kind of question. And so it's a great place to be. Still a difficult question, right?
Yeah.
Like how we move forward, how we scale out, what technologies we invest in. So there's a lot of difficult challenges surrounding that. But there's this undercurrent of understanding that or we even talk about customer journeys too on the supporter side. Like how are we going to have our supporters be fully engaged and their needs being met from a journey experience standpoint? That's data driven, as well. So at every area of the business, there's a strong hunger for data. And so I haven't had to do much sales on that side. It's more just evangelizing particular approaches to particular problems.
Awesome. That's great. Well, you did mention some notion of challenges, though, because as we know, being in consulting for as many years as you've been in it, I'm sure you remember the idea that the more data you have usually leads to more problems. So it's great you guys want to scale, but what kind of challenges do you guys see you're running into when it comes to this notion of more data and trying to use data?
Yeah, one of your previous guests from Samaritan Purse said that we're an Excel world, right? I think
Yeah.
he said something like that at Samaritan's Purse, and that he can take comfort in knowing that that is true at Compassion as well. So I really one of the things that I'm really pushing on hard is improving those processes and structures and there's an acronym in software engineering called DRY, do not repeat yourself, DRY. That is one of my rules to live by. Single source of truth. Whenever you have duplicate authorities on data points or even data structures, like how you model or represent data, that duplication creates incredibly hard to manage technical debt. And then you also lose the ability to properly govern your data. So for us, it's, of course, with the volume comes data quality problems,
of course, yeah.
As always. But that it seems almost secondary to just kind of getting this foundation right.
No, that's so true. There's so many companies that I've seen and worked with where you're exactly right. Everyone has a copy of the same spreadsheet spread across many different computers, but they all don't have the same values. And so what is truth? What isn't truth? Who do you have? Exactly. Where do we even save this? It's a problem for everyone. So, like you said, I think a lot of times nonprofits may feel like they're stuck in a rut. It's like, oh, trust me, there are big businesses that have the exact same problem.
Totally.
So let's speak about some of the successes, though. On the opposite side of challenges, what are some big successes you guys have seen through the data that you guys have gotten, through the structures you've set up? What are some, success stories at Compassion International?
Yeah, this was a challenging one to think about because I'm still so new. I know there have been successes, with data. I'm kind of benefiting from them as I join. So I don't have many anecdotes in my own personal experience. The one thing I did think of, though, was exactly what we were just talking about as far as improving structures. Yeah. So the monitoring and evaluation specialists, they had listed out all of the ways they want to evaluate the program in Excel spreadsheets. And then they would transcribe that into a survey tool to survey the children. And then they would then do analysis. And then there was another data scientist transcribing all of them into Python code to compute some derivations. And then there was other people doing manual data cleaning. And then there was translators in there too, translating the surveys. Yeah. And so it was this tangled web of manual handoff, and the same concept was being replicated in a bunch of different places. And then there was just how are we handling it when they say refuse to answer? How are we going to code that? And then should that go into the averaging, or should it be excluded from the average? All of this kind of what are we actually doing here? And that's where Mr. Dry came in and said, that's an area that I'm really pushing hard right now, where, hey, effectively, it was a DSL that I was designing for them, a domain-specific language, making a single source of truth where they define one of these variables in a business user-friendly terminology, not like a programming language, but here's the name, here's how it's defined. When you ask 6 to 8 year old kids, here's how it changes. Yeah. Here's a translated description of it for when we do reporting globally on if it was effective or not, and then it actually plugged into an ontology of this is how it bubbles up into the outcomes we're trying to measure. And so that's and then that actually code generates lambdas and stuff that actually compute the data as it flows through. So now the designers of these evaluation metrics are in the driver's seat. And then when they change one of these definition files, the data dictionaries and everything and all the calculations flow out from that single source of truth. So that's the kind of stuff that we're pushing on, more so than specific challenging ML or AI problems. That will come soon. But it's kind of more getting those foundations set up.
That's awesome, though, because I think that highlights an important thing. Even when we read in the Bible, communication is so important, right? And so it's something that, again, now that you have people all talking essentially the same language in a way, it makes it a lot easier for things to actually get done as compared to them just going off in many different directions. So that is amazing to hear. Again, dry. I like that. We're going to use that analogy. Dry. I like that.
Yeah, I even snuck in Git on them. So
wow, you're pulling out everything.
Actually, I set up VS Code with Git extensions installed, so they don't really know they're doing Git. They're trying to get that, because it's such a
True.
successful model
Yeah.
for change management.
Yeah.
And so moving out of the Excel, real-time thing where you lose the ability to actually know what version of things you're doing, and actually say, hey, for this instrument, this research instrument, it's version 1.2.3.
Yep.
And that is all the surveys were then recomputed at that, vintage, right? So trying to have that governance and monitoring and modeling, these things that we data scientists kind of take for granted,
It's true.
so kind of bringing that in more into the business world,
That's awesome. That is awesome to hear. That is awesome to hear. Well, let's wrap this up, my friend. What are some things we can pray about for you and Compassion International?
Yeah, I think the analogy I keep thinking is, we talk about weaponizing data to blow up poverty, right? Like,
yeah.
like we're fighting, we're fighting this battle to help release these children, and it's a big giant battleship we have now, and it's sailing, and we're not going to stop sailing. But we do have to kind of turn the battleship, technologically, data-wise. We're talking about, various systems that we use, how to improve them, how to refactor them. And so I saw myself jumping in and onto the battleship and helping, turn things and, do whatever control systems to help where I could. And I think that's the big prayer request is like, are we turning the battleship in the right direction? Because if we get that wrong, it's very costly. Because you have to invest in your infrastructure to scale.
Yes.
But yes, that is resources that, if misused, are taking away from the mission. So it's like, if well used, it accelerates the mission. If misused, it hinders the mission. So that's the big prayer request, is that we're like turning in the right direction as it slowly makes that transition.
That is awesome. I love it. We will definitely be praying for you on that. Perfect. Well, John, thank you so much. It's been amazing to be able to talk to you again and find out more about Compassion International, see the drum set in the background. It's a win-win all around. So thank you so much for coming out.
Thanks for having me, Eric. I really appreciate it.
No problem. And thank you, everyone at home. As always, it's an absolute pleasure. Take care, and God bless.